Members, if there are any members who are here from Tweedle Child and Family Health Service, Darlingford Upper Golden Valley Nursing Home, Indigo North Health, the Queen Elizabeth Centre, Lindog Living, Redcliffs, Community Aged Care, welcome back to the Public Sector Enterprise Bargaining Agreement. It's been a while since we've had you under this particular agreement. And as I said, a big welcome to those members, and you'll be able to enjoy the benefits of being back under the Public Sector Enterprise Bargaining Agreement. So without any further ado, I will pass over to Diana Asma, Diana Asma's here so let's welcome Diana Asma. Welcome.
Thanks, David. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. It's very unfortunate that I can't see you in person. This is the closest I can get to you. But what we're here today is to make sure that we answer as much questions as possible, at the same time give you the opportunity to ask those questions, but at the same time to give you a quick brief about what you really are going to get in this public sector EBA. Our last EBA was done in 2015-2016. It was a lot easier than this time around. This time it's been very difficult. I have to thank David Eden, our Assistant Secretary, and Cameron Granger, our Industrial Officer, because they've worked very hard to try and get the best outcome for you. But let me be clear to all the admin workers, we treasure your work and your hard work and everything that you do. And I thank you for all the work that you do. But at the same time, I need to make it very clear to everybody that you're actually going to get more than 2%. So yes, the government has a policy that says it's only 2%. That was last year. This year they dropped down to 1.5% as a policy to give anyone, not any union cannot get more than 1.5% as their EBA increases. But to explain that more in detail, what that actually means, I'm going to pass it over to David Eden, our Assistant Secretary, to clarify exactly what you're getting. So thanks everyone for joining us. We hope to see you soon. But this is the first of many, many feedbacks and communications and questions for all our members. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much for that, Diana. Diana hit it right, the nail right on the head. I've been involved with a number of enterprise bargaining agreements, conducted thousands of negotiations over the years, and this was one of the more difficult rounds of bargaining when you're sitting across the table from someone who essentially says there's nothing in the bank. It makes it pretty difficult to negotiate decent wages outcomes for our members. But anyway, without further ado, we'll start off with what is enterprise bargaining. Quite often, we as union officials talk about enterprise bargaining as though everyone else understands what we're talking about. It's essentially a foreign language to those who don't participate in bargaining all the time. So if you go to the second slide there, Jose. What we have is, keep going through, you've got the older version there, mate. Well, the cake, that'll do us. Let's start off with the one with the cake. No worries, thanks very much for that. So what a lot of people don't understand is that enterprise bargaining is a two-way street. So while we go around and negotiate with our members, we ask questions, we send out surveys, we work out exactly what you want in your enterprise bargaining agreement, the employer also does the same process, that being the government ultimately, but with the employers across Victoria, they ask them what they want out of enterprise bargaining as well. And there's this constant tug of war between the employers always wanting to strip back people's wages and entitlements back to what the modern award is, and the union trying to enhance the wages and conditions of its members. And I like to use the analogy of the cake. The modern award essentially is the cake, and an enterprise bargaining agreement is the icing on top of the cake. And if we do really, really well with our negotiations, we'll get the candles and the lollies as well. So that's what enterprise bargaining is. It's not just a one-way set of negotiations, it's the employer as well. And it's like selling a car, I suppose. If you're going to sell a vehicle privately, you'll always put an extra, put an extra dollar on it to either improve your profit or have you be negotiated back down to what you actually want. And if you get negotiated down, the buyer walks away thinking they've got themselves a bargain and you've got exactly what you're asking for. So bargaining is essentially like that as well, where we'll, as a union, always claim for a lot more than what we'll ultimately end up with through bargaining. And this is no exception. Next slide, thanks, mate. The government's wages policy, as Diana touched on, we were fortunate enough to negotiate under the 2% government wages policy. As of this month, the government's wages policy is now 1.5%. So we've got a union out there, the Health Professionals Union. They did what's known as a rollover deal, which got them 2.5%, so that when their agreement expired, they negotiated a rollover, no negotiations or anything. They just accepted the 2.5% wage increase with no improvements on conditions, with a view that they would negotiate in 12 months' time. If I was a health professional, I'd be pretty angry now because they've been duped. They've done a 2.5% rollover, only now to fall fairly and squarely within the government's new wages policy of 1.5%. When we did see the wages policy of 2%, yeah, sure, we were a little bit frustrated along with every other public sector union, regardless whether in the health industry or not. But when we read through and looked at what other opportunities there are for us to get additional funds to improve our members' wages conditions, we realised that the third pillar offered a really good opportunity, probably more so than any other union in the public sector, to gain more in wages and improve conditions for our members. So on to the next slide, thanks, mate. So what was in Pillar 3? Well, Pillar 3, we could get extra funding if we were supporting other government initiatives, and the TAFE system has been heavily invested in by the state government. And many of our members covered by this agreement have no formal qualifications, or they might have a Certificate 3 in TAFE, and they want to advance their careers in TAFE. And through supporting the TAFE system and building on some of the classification definitions, we're able to milk additional funding out of Pillar 3 because we're supporting another government wages. Another government's policy on the TAFE system. Another area we could access was if there was a particular classification group that has been largely neglected or ignored in previous rounds of bargaining, and let me tell you, there were a few of them, and we're able to get extra wages uplifts for them. But also where there is or has been some wages inequality between groups. And a good example of that is where the instrument technician group that we spoke to yesterday had fallen quite behind the theatre tech group, very similar wages and responsibilities. The instrument techs are overwhelmingly a female group and the theatre techs are overwhelmingly a male group. So we're able to use that leverage out of Pillar 3 to do some wage alignments there over the life of the agreement also. Next one, thanks, mate. So one of the outcomes we got with negotiations is an extra week's annual leave for all. If you are currently on 4 weeks annual leave a year, you will move to 5 weeks accrual of annual leave per year. If you are currently receiving 5 weeks annual leave a year because you're a shift worker, you work weekends, you get the 5 weeks, you will move to 6 weeks annual leave per year. That's a great win for our members. However, there is a catch, and the catch is on the next slide. Thanks, Jose. At the moment, under the current agreement, if you work a public holiday and you're, regardless whether you're a full-time or a part-time employee, you'll receive 2.5 times your usual pay. Under the new agreement, you'll receive double time. On a rostered day off, if you're full-time, you receive 1.5 times or time and a half. Under the new agreement, you'll receive single time. And if you're a part-time employee under the current agreement, if you would ordinarily work that day of the week, the public holiday, falls on and you have to be rostered off, you get time and a half. Under the new agreement, you'll get your usual pay based on your average hours worked. Now, the additional week's annual leave and the public holiday package, if you like, is completely in line with what the nurses have and have had for quite some time. So we've essentially gone cut and paste straight out of the nurses' enterprise bargaining agreement and put it into yours. It is a better arrangement than what the police force have had. The police force have had very good leave entitlements over many, many years, and that's because they gave up their public holiday penalties altogether. So regardless of whether they work Christmas Day or some other public holiday, until their current agreement, they would have only received single time. This new agreement provides them with 4 public holidays a year where they'll actually get paid a public holiday penalty for working them. So this is exactly the same arrangement as the nurses. It's not, nothing. We've been able to capitalise on their membership size and influence across the industry, and we've just got what they've got. On to the next slide, thanks, mate. Long service leave access after 7 years. Well, as we know, we've got an ageing workforce, and we're getting our workforce replaced by younger groups of people. Younger groups of people are more transient in the workplace as well. They don't hold down a job or the same job with the same employer for 10 years or more, or decades, like some of you have already worked for your employer. So long service leave is now, well, is a pipe dream for a lot of younger workers. What we've done is we've introduced a phased-in approach with long service leave. So as of July 1 this year, if you've completed 9 years of service, you can access on a pro rata basis long service leave, and that is based on the State Long Service Leave Act. So if the State Long Service Leave Act is 13 weeks, not 17 under your current agreement after 10 years. Next year, you'll be able to access long service leave after 8 years, and the following year, you'll be able to access long service leave after 7 years. This long service leave clause is absolutely in line with what the nurses got as well, and phased in at the same rate as what the nurses have been able to do under their agreement. So as of this year, their nurses will be able to access long service leave after 9 years. Well, so can you. Next slide, thanks, mate. How would you like an ADO and a 3-day weekend? Well, we've seen, I like to call this the Mildura Clause. In 1998, Mildura Hospital was privatised into Ramsay's hands, and part of the process was that they had to sell off their ADOs, and now they're back in the public sector and covered by this agreement. We've reintroduced ADOs for employees working 37 hours a week or more. This wasn't a situation unique to Mildura. It also affected many admin workers working in hospitals across Victoria. We see time and time again employers employing people at 37.5 hours a week just to avoid needing to pay someone a ADO and providing them with 3 days off once a month. So this is a great outcome. If you're currently working 37 hours a week or more, you can approach your employer and say, I want a rostered system of work to provide me with an ADO once a month, and they can't unreasonably refuse that request. Next slide. The workloads within the public sector for all employees, so this just isn't for admin workers, but anyone employed in the health industry, and the AMA are constantly battling this sort of situation for their doctors working in the hospitals, and that is workload, and it's a real issue. It's a health and safety issue, and what we've been able to do in this agreement is embed WorkSafe's fatigue guidance for employers into our enterprise bargaining agreement. WorkSafe were incredibly excited when they found out that we embedded this guidance in our enterprise bargaining agreement. It provides really thorough advice for employers on how to best manage fatigue in the workplace. how to deal with excessive workloads, how to deal with safe systems of rostering, so to avoid fatigue in the workplace. And even if you read through it, if you've got people doing night shift, have you provided opportunities to have them recharge their batteries with nap time? So it's an incredible piece of work. We, Health Workers Union, worked on this guidance with WorkSafe for around 18 months, and to have it now embedded into the enterprise bargaining agreement will certainly help us address a lot of the workload issues that are going on in the workplace. So where an employer hasn't been replacing staff on leave, and it's a consistent story out there that someone takes some leave, whether it's planned or unplanned, and the employer doesn't replace them or doesn't replace them fully, and those who happen to be at work have to pick up the slack. Well, at the moment, the only way we can deal with it is through the grievance procedure, and essentially the status quo must remain under the grievance procedure until the grievance is resolved. So by the time you sort through the grievance procedure with your employer, the day's over and done with, and you've just worked your guts out. How this is going to be used is if you've got an issue around workload, it's going to be dealt with under the Occupational Health and Safety Clause in this agreement, where you will have the powers to cease, up to having the powers to cease work until you're provided with a safe work environment. So this is a really, really powerful clause to address workload and fatigue issues in the workplace. Next slide, thanks, mate. If you are an OH&S rep, please let us know because sometimes our records aren't always up to scratch, and our OH&S members do receive additional information around occupational health and safety than our broader membership. And if you are a health and safety representative, you are entitled to 5 days basic training every year with 5 days basic training and a 1-day refresher course every year. If you're from regional Victoria, we recommend Be Safe as the training provider. And if you're in Melbourne, we recommend Victorian Trades Hall Council as the training provider. So if you have a health and safety representative in your department that's been duly elected, you might want to have a chat to them as well about their rights to training and have them trained up within your department. And of course, you can have a deputy OH&S rep in your department also. If you go on to the next clause, thanks, mate. So this idea came about from my experience working at St John of God Healthcare in Ballarat. And St John of God are a self-insurer when it comes to work cover, and to be able to get self-insurer status in Victoria, you essentially must have your work cover claims so small that they don't even blip up on the work cover statistics. They are a very good employer. They're very health and safety conscious, and what they do is they encourage their health and safety representatives or departments to have a health and safety representative. We go through the election processes. I was elected as a health and safety rep for my department, and because I showed a lot of interest around health and safety, the health and safety manager actually invited me over to work 1 day a fortnight with him in the health and safety department. And there were other health and safety reps at that hospital as well that did something similar, where they would go over, once a fortnight, or might mean once a week or once a month. It was depending on the arrangements, but they'd go over and work in that department as well. And I wasn't sure why at first I was invited over, but it turns out that the health and safety manager of St John's at the time didn't have a health background, and what he was doing is that he was picking our brain. He was learning and understanding the various departments in the hospital, and sitting down with us and working out how best to create and implement policies, occupational health and safety policies to protect their employees. But it was a two-way learning, I suppose you could say, where it wasn't just him learning what we did within our department. I also learned a lot more around what occupational health and safety managers do and what sort of qualifications and things that you should have when you're working in these positions. And one of the other health and safety reps that would work up on the work within that department, who was a chef in the kitchen, She actually went on and did her Certificate 4 in Occupational Health and Safety, and when he retired, she replaced him as the Health and Safety Manager there at St John's. So I think it's a really good opportunity for elected health and safety representatives to approach the Health and Safety Manager and say, can we have some kind of secondment arrangement? I'd love to learn more about health and safety. And they should accept you on that offer, because we see, there's a lot of health and safety managers out there in the health industry that don't have a health and safety background, and it's about shared learnings and opportunities. Next slide, thanks, mate. Well, as you know, none of us are getting any younger. We're getting joints and things that are wearing out. A workplace injury might not just be a broken bone or a laceration. It might be a repeated stress injury, such as a wrist from using keyboards all the time. It might be a slip or a fall, but regardless of what it is, we're getting people under the admin section of the agreement having issues when it comes to health and safety and injuries in the workplace. What we've found too, is it probably is more our members who are in a physically demanding job than perhaps those in an administration type role, but we've had members as PSAs, for example, and in their heyday, they were able to pump through 30 beds a day and, not raise a sweat. And as they've aged and parts have worn out, they're getting down to their 10 to 15 beds a day, and the employers are dragging them in and putting them on performance improvement plans because they're not able to, do the job that they used to be able to do. Well, they won't be able to do that anymore. So if your workload's dropping off, and as I said, we're not getting any younger, and we have experienced some of our members who have had such things as early onset Alzheimer's as well. Their memory, they have memory issues and things that is impacting on their work. Then if during the performance improvement plan, has been identified that you have some kind of disability, and a disability might be an injury or it might be a mental condition such as Alzheimer's, the employer has to then, under this agreement, through the Equal Opportunity Clause in this agreement, make reasonable adjustments to ensure that you can continue to do your job working for that organisation. So you just can't be performance improvement planned out of your job. They've got to make reasonable adjustments to keep you employed. On to the next slide, thanks, mate. Workplace trainer careers advisors. Under your current agreement, we've been able to negotiate 30 EFT across the state of Victoria. That is a workplace trainer careers advisor in every hospital across the state of Victoria. And what we're looking to do is expand the workplace trainer careers advisor by an additional 15 EFT. If you haven't made your acquaintances with your workplace trainer careers advisor, I encourage you to do so. They're there to help you with your career path and your career path opportunities. And I'm sure that we've got some workplace trainer careers advisors on this Zoom meeting today. And, you guys are eating a bit as far as we're concerned. You're there driving career path opportunities for our members at the workplace, and have one of the most important roles and special and rewarding roles that I see in the health industry. So any of the workplace trainer careers advisors here today, welcome, and you guys have got an absolutely fantastic job to do out there in the hospitals. Their roles have been expanded a little bit with the increase in EFT that we've been able to negotiate over Victoria. There's a couple of extra things that they're going to be involved in. So where you've had some kind of workplace injury, and it's been determined that you cannot work or return back to your pre-injury rate, or pre-injury role, I should say, then the workplace trainer careers advisor will get involved in possible retraining and redeployment opportunities for you. You might not have any formal qualifications. They can assist you in gaining a qualification into a job that you are able to continue to do with your injury. But the other role they're going to be picking up also is that where a position's been deemed to be made redundant, that they'll get involved as early as possible for possible retraining and redeployment within the organisation as well. So as I said, the Workplace Training Careers Advisors are a very special group of people, and they play a really, really important role for our members right across Victoria. Next slide. I've covered off on that. So we've got an additional 15 EFT. And what I'd like to do here is if we can just play that little video, Jose, and this gives you a bit of an idea of what the role is about.
You're coming from a long road and the money's gone. All the games where you played your part from the very start just to come this far. You should know I believe in you. Every race you run, you're my number one. Kick it up now and bring it on. This will be your day. 'Cause baby, you were born to win. Never give up, never give in, you were born to win. Your destiny is victory. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Baby, you were born to win. You set it up and you knock it down. You're all set now to rock this town. You don't really need to play it low. Just get up and go. This is all your show. You should know I believe in you. Every race you run, you're my number one. Kick it up now and bring it on. This will be your day. 'Cause baby, you were born to win. Never give up, never give in, you were born to win. Your destiny is victory. Yeah, 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 baby, you were born to win.
Thank you very much for that, Jose. If you want to jump to the next slide, that gives you a bit of an idea or an overview of the important role that the Workplace Trainer Careers Advisor plays in your workplace. If you haven't met them yet, please go and introduce yourself, and they might be able to point you on a projection to a career path you didn't even know about. The next slide is superannuation. As we know, women typically retire with less superannuation than men. A couple of reasons for that. Women on a whole do earn less than men, and I hope this enterprise bargaining agreement starts to go in the right direction, start addressing some of those issues. But the other main impact on women's superannuation is the fact that they have time out, they have families. This is absolutely a massive outcome with these negotiations, where superannuation will be paid on parental leave, not just the paid component of parental leave of 3 months. You'll get paid parental leave for 12 months. Your contributions, which will happen every 4 weeks, will be based on your the previous 12 months of employment, so the average of your income over the previous 12 months, and it'll be contributed into your superannuation fund. It might not seem like much, long service leave, missing it out for 12 months, but over the life of the superannuation fund and up until the time you retire, this all compounds, and this will go a long way to addressing the current inequities or inconsistency between those men and women working in the same industry and retiring at the same time, only for the men to have a lot more in their super accounts than women. So that's an absolutely huge outcome for our members. and it's been too long in coming. So next slide, thanks, mate. Where, as we know, the admin classification structure has definitions in it that are so broad that you can park a truck in it. And the few disputes that we have taken off to the Fair Work Commission, we've had some disputes go our way, some disputes go go the employer's way. Sometimes it depends on what commissioner you get. None of the commissioners we're appearing before have a health industry background. They're just going on the evidence, and even they say, you know, the descriptors are, you know, really hard to interpret. What we've been able to do is set up an industry review panel. It'll be set up with an independent chair with a health background. So it will most likely be a retired commissioner who has a health industry background. And what will happen is, if there is a dispute in relation to your classification, it will, our members will have access to this industry review panel, where we'll present evidence to support your claim that you've been misclassified, and the employers will also obviously argue their case. But the beauty of this is we don't have to wait months and months for a commission hearing, and we don't have to wait months and months for a commissioner to hand down his decision. We can take it to this panel. The panel will meet very regularly, and based on evidence provided, and the independent chair will hand down their decision, whether or not it's in favour of the employer or the employer, and we'll get your classification issue resolved much more quickly than the current process that we've got, and that's through the Fair Work Commission. So that's a really interesting concept. The nurses have also established a industry review panel to resolve their disputes. So we're not alone as a union having issues resolving disputes before the Fair Work Commission. As I said, it is a problem when we've got commissioners who don't understand the industry, and they're just going on papers and evidence provided. So this is a great coup for us to also have an industry review panel. Now what we'll do is get into what you guys really want to know about, and that is as an admin worker, and what's in it for me. If you go to the second slide, thanks, Jose. Under the current agreement, there has for a long time been an occupational health and safety clause, and it only has sat in the health and allied services section. So there's no occupational health and safety clause in the agreement for admin workers. What we've done is we've taken this clause out of the health and allied services section and put it into what's going to be the common term. So it'll apply to anyone under the agreement, including admin workers. What this does is it just gives us another trigger that we can pull, where if we're not satisfied with WorkSafe inspectors coming in to inspect an occupational health and safety issue, we can take it off to the Fair Work Commission ourselves and argue before the Commission whether or not the employer has been providing a safe work environment. And under the clause, the Occupational Health and Safety Clause, the employers must have policies and procedures that protect employees covered by this agreement using what's out of the Act, the hierarchy of control. So where we've seen really awful employers letting their workplace bullies getting away with bullying and harassing people in the workplace, and when issues are raised, employers standing down the victims whilst investigations take place. Some of them have been at home for 2 years. It's just disgraceful. They won't be able to do that anymore, especially with admin, or for anyone covered by this agreement. The hierarchy of control is that you eliminate the risk at its source. So if there are health and safety concerns raised under this agreement, the employer's got to address them, and they've got to use the hierarchy of control. You eliminate the risk at its source. So this is a really big coup for health and safety improvements for admin workers. We have got a number of outstanding issues with employers where WorkSafe have absolutely let our members down, and we've been keeping the powder dry on that, and their employees covered by the Health and Allied Services section, so we can still go back and prosecute employers for not providing a safe work environment. Why we haven't prosecuted yet is because we wanted to make sure that we've got this in the negotiations into common terms or common conditions, so it will in the future also apply the same protections to administration staff as well. So let's stamp out bullying and harassment with this clause that's about to become a common clause. Next slide, thanks, mate. So I've been reading some of the correspondence that's come through, and interestingly, people have got some idea in their head that we haven't delivered great outcomes for admin or clerical workers in the past. So what I thought I'd do is just pop this up and give you an idea of what the clerical wages have been under this current HW leadership, because we've been really invested in improving the wages and conditions for admin workers, and it needed to happen in a number of steps. When Diana and I took over, we inherited an enterprise bargaining agreement that provided a limited number of funds to spend any way we seen fit. And what we did was we spent the lion's share of that amount on clerical ward clerks across Melbourne, taking them from a clerical worker grade C to a clerical worker grade B. So that was in 2014 in April. And as you can see, there was a wage jump there as a result of that. In the next round of bargaining, what we did was we brought all the clerical workers across Victoria into the admin structure. And partly the reason for that is that admin workers felt as though they were a minority group and they weren't getting looked after by sending all the clerical workers into the admin classifications. We gave the admin workers the reinforcements that they needed. And the admin workers actually make up almost 50% of employees now covered by this agreement. So they're just the reinforcements you needed. And as you can see, there was another wages jump for the clerical workers as a result of bringing across the admin structure throughout 2017, 18, and now 19. Go to the next slide, thanks, mate. Now, with our surveys across our admin members, there was a couple of things that really stood out that you weren't going to be moving on when it comes to bargaining. And one of the biggest things was experience payments. And I think that probably come from the fact that we moved the clerical workers across into the admin structure. Clerical workers were used to 5 years of experience, and under the admin structure, it's just a flat rate regardless of how many years of experience you've got. And the issue is that you may have been doing your job for many years. Someone walks in off the street, sits down beside you, you're quite often teaching them what to do, and they're receiving exactly the same rate of pay as you. So that was a big frustration for our members. And what we've been able to do is have experience payments introduced for admin workers across all of Victoria. So we know that the Royal Children's and Royal Women's have had experience payments. But if you actually dive into the overall rates of pay for the Royal Children's and Royal Women's, they on a whole are actually getting paid 4.5% less in wages than the rest of the admin workers across Victoria. So that was really interesting. It was a surprise to me when we really dived into it and had a look, but it is what it is. So as of 1 July, there will be experience payments for admin workers. The other big gripe for admin workers was the 1A. And the 1A positions is you'll find them right across regional Victoria in particular, but you'll also see them in back of house areas in hospitals all over Victoria. So the non-ward clerk sort of positions. And also what's happening is employers are systematically replacing admin workers grade 1s, 2s and 3s as they retire or leave the organisation with admin worker grade 1As. So what everyone wanted to do under the admin structure was limit the 1A as essentially a training level, and after 12 months at 1A you will automatically progress to the grade 1 position. We're able to achieve that in negotiations as well. So not only have we got years of experience payments for admin workers, we've also now limited the admin worker grade 1A as entry level only. If you go to the next slide. Now, you guys would have received the message, as did every other classification, where it said the wages outcome. And the wages outcome was 2% government wages policy plus pillar 3. And then it gave you what your wages were under that. And I think what people have done is gone 2% wage increase, skipped over pillar 3 and looked at the wages and gone, oh, that's what 2% looks like. Well, when you actually dive into the wages that you got, we did get additional uplifts through pillar 3. And if I've done some highlights there, so that across the top there, you've got current that's been highlighted. And if you move down one, and I've just picked out grade 1, level 1 as an example, because there's probably the bulk of the people that are on here. Your current rate as an admin worker grade 1 is 1123.90. How the introduction of the years of experience is going to work is that you move across one to 2021, so as of 1 July this year, and you move down one in the chart. So your wage increase will go from 1123.90 to 1135.14. The following year, 2022, cross, move down one, 1163.24. In 2023, you move across one, down one, 1208.19. And in the final year of the agreement, 2024, cross, down one, 1242.47. That equates to a 10.6% wage increase, which is the wage increase almost across the board. I think they're level 4 off the top of my head, got a 10.5% increase over the life of the agreement, but otherwise all admin workers, regardless of level, got a 10.6% wage increase, unless you were a admin worker grade 1A and you got an extra kick along with that, which meant that if you go from admin worker grade 1A to an admin worker grade 1 year 1 or level 1, your wage increase over the life of your agreement actually equates to 17.2%. And if you know how many 1As that exist out there across the public hospital system at the moment, that cost the employers an absolute bomb. So have you guys done better than the government wages policy of 8%? You betcha. As a group, you've cost the government a lot more than 8%. And when we throw in your things like your super contribution, whilst on parental leave, when you take into account how much extra you'll get in holiday leave loadings alone over the life of the agreement with your extra weeks annual leave, as well as the fact that we've been able to introduce the incremental payments system for you, equating to 10.6%. And part of the reason for that is that you're once again predominantly a female workforce, but we've provided some wages efficiencies over the life of the agreement for employers, where potentially they can employ a grade 1 at level 1 brand new person into the sector in 2024 for the same rate of pay that they can pay them today. If we factored in a 5% attrition rate, and we were able to successfully argue that overall this was an acceptable claim against the employer. And with some argy-bargy, and I tell you, the employers didn't want the 5th year of experience. They wanted to cap it at 4 years, but we managed to get the 5th year of experience because we were flexible in moving the commencement date of this agreement to 1 July 2021. Next one. So if you guys want to take your fingers down the left-hand column and take yourself to whatever grade you might be at the moment. So, so you're a grade 3 level 1. There probably could be a few of you out there. I know the Workplace Training Careers Advisors, for example, come in at that level, and slide your finger across to current, and that's 1431.70 for the grade 1 level 1. Move your finger across one, down one. That's your wage increase this year. Move it across one, down one. That's your wage increase for the following year. Move it across one, down one. That's your wage increase for the following year. And across one, down one. That's your wage increase for the following year. And as I said, it is 10.6% for admin workers. And once again, I say it's a lot better than what the government's wages policy was. If you go to the next slide. We did make some minor changes to the definitions at grade 1A through to grade 4, so not including grade 4, but up to grade 4, to try and, to try and reduce the size of those car parks that currently exist, that you could certainly park a truck in. And we certainly didn't get the definitions tightened up anywhere near where we would like to have seen them. But what we've got from the employers is a commitment that we will look to review and tighten up those classifications over the life of the agreement, with trials also set up with various hospitals in the state of Victoria to trial the new definitions to ensure that they are fit for purpose, with a view that we will roll out the new classifications in the new agreement. Final slide, thanks, Matt. So part of that process is that there will be, actually I think I've touched on this with the industry review panel. So speeding up the classification disputes, yeah, I spoke to that as part of the main presentation. So what we might do is call an end to the presentation, and it looks like we've got around 76 questions down the bottom. I'm sure a lot of them are the same question as well. And what I might do is hand you over to Cameron Granger, our industrial officer, who's been hiding in the background there, sorting through all your questions, and we'll get the answers. If we don't have the answers on hand, we'll certainly get them through to you. And those questions that you are putting forward will also be put together in a frequently asked questions and answers, and we'll get it out across the entire membership as well, the admin membership. So thank you all very much for your time, and over to Cameron.